somebody on my Facebook page suggested I make a State of the Union video about all of the builds, what happened to them, what's happening to them, and fill in a little bit of the backstory on what has happened with the channel since 2021 to now. That's what we're gonna do. Let's get into it. You know why I like making the racing history videos? Because when I was a kid, I wanted to grow up and live in the world that I was a kid in. And the world we have today is so far removed from that I don't know what's going on anymore, and I don't like it. So instead of kicking and screaming, I try to do my best to show people what was cool about those past eras, with the hope that raising awareness about them will influence a better future than the present we have today, because I am not happy with it. So let's get into it. State of the Union, here we go. I didn't clean anything for this, no preparation. This is actually what the shop looks like. The Escalade has not been used since sick week of 2022, which was February of 22. That was the first time it had been run since the end of 2020, when it blew up in Circuit of the Americas. So really haven't used it that much at all in the last 3 years. It's been dormant now longer than I had it active with the turbos, which is weird. I feel like this whole world is just a big old freaking time warp. I don't like it. To have the charge pipe out because I was changing the power steering pump. Ordered one from Summit that was listed to work. It did not work, and they wouldn't take it back, and it still sits that way. Got the transmission pulled out of it sometime in 2022, had it redone. Now it's back, it's in the back, it's got a reed case now, just waiting to go in there. Have a whole Holley system waiting to put in it. Just haven't decided to put the time into doing all of it, because when I set out to build it in 2017, started that process, I wanted it to be able to run 960s all day. I wanted it to have full interior, be capable of driving around, do drag week with it. That's what I wanted. Well, it did all of those things. It didn't do hot rod drag week specifically, but it did Rocky Mountain race week and finished the week with a 9-second average. That's what I wanted to do. It could run 940s whenever I wanted to, and I had it all over the place. I went all over the place with it in 2019 and some of 2020. Changed the transmission 7, 8, 9 times. I don't know. Too many. I kind of got tired of it. I never even got to iron out the things about it that I wanted to iron out, because I was too busy just keeping it together so I could keep things moving forward. Because you got to think, there was no YouTube channel when this started. What am I going to do with it now? It's going to sit there until I feel like working on it. But before I feel like working on it, I'm thinking that the Monte Carlo and Uncle Rob will come first. Uncle Rob's on the other side of that door, the other room. So which one should I talk about next? This one or Uncle Rob? How about this one? The Monte Carlo and the X-Pipe project made really quick progress. I did test it once, and it sounds amazing. Made one pull with it, took it to the dyno, found out it was having fuel pressure problems again, which I just tried to fix. Thought I did fix it. I fixed it, we took it to the dyno, it ran. That's when I decided I didn't like the way it sounded. I went to do all this. Didn't touch the fuel system at all. Went and did the made headers, equal length headers, and the exhaust, and then it started acting up again. I have no idea why, and it pissed me off. But that's not why it's sitting here. Well, we have a full American Powertrain T56 Magnum conversion kit for this car that we were going to put in. But right around the time that was starting to formulate, I bumped into a really good deal on a used Ilmore block, which was like an old Truck Series ARCA block. It's a dart block, LSX dart block, same as one in the Escalade with a couple different differences, but it's an LS block. A really short stroke billet crank from I think like some kind of IMSA car, and the Honda Journal rods to match. And I thought, man, instead of messing with this 6.2 in here and the blower and all that, we could just build an engine for it that is part of the exhaust sound experiment, that will have a custom ground cam to have the same firing order as additional small block instead of the LS firing order, which is, if you took the small block Chevy firing order and did a 4.7 and a 2.3 swap, that's what an LS motor is. So it'll go back the other way, which I think will make the idle sound different. I'm not super sure it'll make the under power sound different. It's done either way. I have the cam for it on my desk, but the engine is not done. We got with Edelbrock on that, and they are doing some Spintron R&D on the valve train to configure the package for the rockers and the springs and the lifters so that the engine for this car can shift at 10,000 RPM. Important detail I forgot to add here. Why we did not do the T56 conversion right then is because when this engine project started, it was a lot more simple, and I thought it was going to be ready a lot quicker than it was. So like, why would I do all the transmission changing to just take it back out again? But had I known this would be like a 1.5 to 2 year deal, I would have done the conversion and made the car work the way it is. But now it's like, why mess with it now? It is what it is. We'll just do it all at once when it's ready. I wanted an SB2, but I couldn't afford one. They're way too expensive. So I thought, the air doesn't know what the valve covers are shaped like. Why can't somebody take an LS platform engine, as long as it has very similar cam profile, same firing order, very similar compression and volumetric efficiency? Why can't the sound that comes out the tailpipes, if the headers and the exhaust are the same as they would have been on an SB2 car of that era, if all of those factors are the same, why wouldn't it sound just like an SB2? It would. It will. I'm going to prove that it will. There's a lot of people, when I did the header experiment on here, were like, you can't make an LS sound like blah, blah, blah. It's all in the cab. It's all in the this and the that. It's supercharged. It's not carbureted, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to sound right. Well, I'll play the freaking one clip I have of this thing, and you tell me if it sounds like an IROC car or not. Okay, what do you think? I think it has a little bit higher pitch because this thing makes like 200 more horsepower than an IROC car does. That's going to change the tone. It's moving more air. But overall, pretty freaking close, a lot closer than the people who didn't think it would work, I'm sure, would have thought. But first, delay on the engine stuff. Custom pistons are always a process. But now the pistons are done, and we're waiting on the valve train stuff. And that's okay, because there are other projects in line in front of that to where even if I had the engine for this today, I wouldn't start working on it. So I told Edelbrock, do whatever you want to do. I'm okay. Then when the end product is done, it'll be even cooler because I'm working on that, but we'll get to that. When this car is ready, it will have a 10,000 RPM capable LS engine that sounds just like an SB2. It'll have a T56 Magnum, and we have a full QA1 suspension setup to put in it also. So this will be like a whole brand new car when we get to that. The Rolls-Royce, people say, oh, why'd you abandon that project? And my response is, it never really started. The day we brought that thing home, the plan was always to wait to start that thing until Uncle George was done. But, and this is a mistake on my part of just learning how YouTube works and becoming wiser over time, I screwed up. I screwed up by posting videos of the tearing down process that we had to do anyway, because when we brought that thing home, it was so full of freaking mold, we could not put it inside the building. It was like a biohazard. You could smell the thing from 30 feet away. Horrible. We had to tear it apart to be able to put it inside safely. That took like a week and a half. God, that was terrible. On top of that, we had to do it right after we moved into this building, which was stressful in itself. Right after we had moved here to North Carolina, we were in the building that we were in for a month and a half, and the people we were renting from were like, oh, we're moving in a pro stock team, you can exit your lease, or we can move you to this other building and you have to pay higher rent and share the building with us. And it took me about 2 seconds to decide, no, I'm not going to do that, we're gonna leave. So for the second time in 2 months, we had to pack up all of our stuff and move it again. I'm digressing here, but my point is, the year 2021, from May until about April of 2022 was probably the most stressful time of my life to date. No, it was the most stressful, 100%. That was hard. There's a lot of uncertainty and stress, because it's fine for me. Before, I could get kicked in the face every day and be okay. I could go live under a bridge. I could go sleep in the woods if I had to do that. I would do what I had to do to be successful and move forward. That's how I got to that point. But it's different when you're no longer only responsible for yourself. I was learning those lessons too, all at the same time. I went head first. 2021 was just like, boo, you get it all right now. Figure it out, kid. And some of it I didn't figure out. It took me longer than it should have, and I paid the price for it. And one of them is, I probably never should have bought that car. That was a emotional decision. It was a sentimental decision. And I tried to justify it by thinking, oh, we can build it and it will then be something that propels life forward, without really thinking. I didn't know what was coming. I agreed to buy the thing in June of 21. That was right before we started moving to North Carolina. Technically, we were still living in Texas. I didn't even know how big our shop was going to be, how much rent it was going to have to pay, because I didn't have to pay rent in Texas. That was why I was there. So learning all the economics of survival with a YouTube page, things seem pretty easy when you have less overhead, I'll say that much. But anyway, if I could go back in time and not buy that car, I would have, because it made a hard time in the journey even harder. It's easy to say that now, but now that that's done and over with, I know someday I'll be glad that I did buy it, because when we do have the time and resources to do it right, it's going to be really cool, and I'll be glad I have that car, because Mr. Forbes played a big part in my life. I always admired that car. Anytime I got to look at it, to clean it, to drive him somewhere in it, it was like coolest thing ever. I would drop anything I was doing if Mr. Forbes called me and said, hey, can you drive me to so-and-so thing tomorrow? Let's take the Rolls. That was just the coolest thing ever to me. And I have the car. I paid the price for it, but I have the car. And it'll sit there until we're ready for it. I think how I got off on that rabbit trail there was, I should not have ever even said anything about it, because a lot of people watched those couple videos we made about picking up the car, tearing it apart, and ripping apart some of the interior pieces. We've got a lot of subscribers that were only there for that did not care about anything else we were doing. And that hurt the channel, because when people, not all attention is good attention. That's a lesson that I learned the hard way. I thought, oh, well, you know what? They'll just be interested in everything because they'll just like us. No, doesn't work like that. Some people just do not give a flaming shit about you. They only care about what you're doing. Still happens to this day. And I accept that now. But we had to learn that the hard way. And it makes you look bad when you start things and don't finish them. But in my mind, we never really started it. I was just making a video about what we were doing, because that's how I had gotten by pretty much up to that point in the early days of YouTube. I just posted whatever I was working on to gain repetition, establish consistency and all that. When I started everything, I posted it like every day, freaking changing airlines on the bus or whatever it was. I just it's pretty much like a daily vlog of whatever I was getting myself into. And as the channel grows, that model is not sustainable because you're not producing high quality content that can live longer than a one-day life cycle for that group of people that actually does care about everything you're doing. On the flip side of that, at that time in 2021, we had a really dedicated group of people who would watch anything we did. And that was really cool. It was really cool. And I wondered at that time, like, why did these people watch this? Like, at some point I just felt like this video does not add value to people's lives. Why am I posting this? Like, I don't, at least I thought, I never wanted to post anything that wasn't worth anything value-wise, but I knew I could do better. And I didn't want to be a reason that somebody would be plopped on their couch instead of bettering themselves. It started to eat at me a little bit. And drifting away from that, now to the point where we don't have any, I wouldn't say any, but we are not the spotlight of our own videos anymore. It's all the history stuff. And to me, I'm less important than the guys who laid the bricks of the foundation for this auto enthusiast racing industry that we all enjoy. They need that. People need to know what they did. That's fine. But we lost a lot of our core fans that cared about us. Maybe they didn't even care about us. They probably just cared about what I was doing. Because there are those of you that are watching this right now who do care about us and have followed through the different pivots of subject matter, and you're the real ones. You're the ones that are really admirable. I don't know. I think you know what I mean. To boil it down, I wish I would have learned sooner to take my time and produce videos with a better story arc, even if that meant that I would get maybe kicked in the face financially on the next paycheck from YouTube because I took the time to film a better video instead of posting what I was able to do in 2 days of work. And I really don't know, and the channel was that small, I don't know if that would have made a difference, honestly. But anyway, I'm off topic now. This is a different story. Uncle George stopped in the tracks of working on that pretty much in April of 22 when we got really into the NASCAR history stuff. It was really fun. The numbers were doing well. It was exciting to make all these new contacts and connections. And at the same time, I thought, if I dump time and resources into building this, what's the end game? What's it going to do? Where is it going to help the bigger picture? I thought, well, to help the bigger picture, I'd probably have to go do the drag and drive events with it, like race week, sick week, drag week, those things. That's the playground for that in terms of video making, at least in my mind. And I was kind of tired of those. I got burned out of it. I did so many freaking drag race events over the last couple years at that time that I was just like, I don't really need to do this anymore. The desire is not there. I'm going to take a break. And I learned that after sick week with the Escalade. I read John Andretti's book at like the end of 2021, and there was a part in there that said he knew it was time to retire when he was driving to Daytona one year, and he was already thinking about how to avoid the traffic getting out of the track when the weekend was over before it even started. And something clicked in him, and he said, you know what, if I'm thinking about this, I don't need to be doing this anymore. And driving to sick week, I was already thinking about going home. And it clicked in me that at one time I would have been so pumped to do one of those events, and I was so pumped. I was so excited just to be there. Every day was fun. It was an experience, and that feeling was gone, and me being there took a spot away from somebody else to have that experience. And I thought, if my heart's not in it, I should not be here because somebody else can be. And then videos are bad. You can tell when I'm not having fun. And I think you could tell in those videos. That's why they did bad. Should have just left. Should have turned around. I should have trusted my gut and been like, I don't even want to do this. I should have just turned around and bailed. But again, lesson learned. That's life. I have been collecting parts for it. I got real wrapped up in making the headers a certain way, which led to wanting to delete the torsion bars, which led to needing custom control arms and all kinds of different stuff. That was kind of an easy distraction. I messed with a little bit later in the year. That's when I learned about the control arm thing. Looked into making my own, thought that it would take too long. Somebody else ended up making them. Now we have them. And I ended up doing the sound experiment I sort of wanted to do with that on the Monte Carlo anyway. So the headers are less important on this now. But I had the stuff all set up to start making the headers and everything. And then I forget what happened. But I think it was after we dynoed the Monte Carlo and I didn't like the way the exhaust sounded, that I was like, let me just try this real quick. And I pulled in here and put it on jack stands, took it off and threw something else on there. And then that just went down the hole. Uncle Rob's parked up here on our wildfire lift, which has been great, by the way. Haven't forgotten about him either. I have a whole new engine built for Uncle Rob right here, 6 liter. It's forged. Actually, it's a little bit bigger than 6 liter because it's like 30 over or something. But I don't want to rip the bag open. But we got CNC ported RHS heads on there, Edelbrock valve train, comp cam. You know, it's a really good motor. It's got CP Corolla rods and pistons. We got a new Force Performance 82 millimeter turbo for it. Got all the parts for that too. Literally October of this past year. The engine got done in like August of last year. And I'd worked ahead enough to where I'd built up a couple weeks of videos saved where I thought, okay, we can do the engine swap in Uncle Rob because it's got blown engine. Pretty much just take that one out, put that one in, put the new turbo on. I got to redo a couple pipes, put a new intercooler in, all that stuff. I had gotten everything needed to do it. And we got the workstation set up, everything was ready to go. Just pulled it in. We're about to crack the lower rad hose and drain the coolant. And my dad called me and he said, oh, grandma's in the hospital. Doesn't look like she's gonna come out of the hospital. And she's 94. We knew it was probably gonna happen at some point. I had known that she was in the hospital and I was going back and forth with my dad to get updates like, well, because she, you know, had problems before and she comes back. She was a freaking tank. She was tough. She didn't give up. And he said, it's not looking good this time. They said to start calling the family. So right then we're just like, okay, we're driving to Pennsylvania today. And we did. And we were there for almost 2 weeks. Most part of a week we were there. We got about 5 days of her still being alive, not knowing what was going to happen. We got to spend some time with her, a little bit of talking, not much, but everybody got to say goodbye. Most of the family got to come do that. That was an experience. It was certainly better than getting a phone call and saying she's gone and not ever having that closure. By the time we got home, the buffer window for building that was gone, and it was full court press, wide open for the rest of the year with no videos for November, December, because that's the high point of, you know, holiday YouTube traffic and everything. And then this was the next build on the chopping block, and I should have started this a long time ago. Underestimated how much time it was going to take. But when the Grand National Super Series car is done and racing it, and then it's just like a maintenance deal and not the build, then we'll start doing Uncle Rob. So that'll be coming in the summer, I think. That's the plan, because I'm supposed to be racing this car. The season started already and I'm behind. But this is the kind of racing that excites me now. I want to spend more time in the car. I always wanted to drive one of these things from when I was a little kid. Never had the opportunity to. Wasn't allowed to race go-karts, wasn't allowed to do this, that, the other thing. I had to weasel my way into doing any kind of racing at all by taking my dad's Escalade to test and tune and modifying it without telling him, which is how that whole thing was born. And my true original interest in racing was NASCAR. I just had no way to be a part of it growing up. And around 2020, in the lockdown, sitting in my trailer in Oklahoma, I realized that I still wanted to do it. But I was so far removed from being able to do it, I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? And I was like, well, I just got to keep doing what I'm doing. And if I keep doing what I'm doing, I can cross-pollinate, pivot into that. And that's what's happening. That was my intent for a long time. But you don't go saying that stuff. People think you're crazy. You might think I'm crazy right now, but I don't care. I'm gonna do it anyway. So I'm not just out here flailing my arms. There was always the big picture goal was to be here. And that is why I'm working on this car instead of the other ones, because I want to race. And yes, I am filming all of this, just haven't posted it yet because I learned my dang lesson. You don't post stuff until it's ready. You don't post videos with your projects until you're going to be able to post the videos quick enough to keep people's interest. That's where I screwed up with everything else. I would just post what I was doing, and if I did that with this, you'd be tired of it already and it wouldn't matter. But now I'm stockpiling the footage, so when we do the build series, it can be like boom, boom, boom. Every video will have a nice story arc with a beginning and an end. You'll be able to see significant progress, and the car will go from nothing to running very quickly from what you will see, even though it's taken me months to do it. And it'll be a lot more enjoyable that way. So this is my first experiment with a true planned out build series, pretty much. And then you'll be able to see racing it too. We'll do that, and we'll have the kind of the guys from our history videos be involved in that stuff, like Doug Richard, or people know him as Doug Reichert. He calls it Richard, he just doesn't correct people. He's been kind of my guidance on, well, should I do this, should I do that? And he'll come over here, he'll give me homework, and then I'll do it, and I'll send him pictures, like, you know, like I had to lower the cross member to make room for the oil pan, and he showed me how the best way to go about it would be. He's like, all right, yeah, do that, get everything tacked up, send me some pictures before you finish weld anything. So I did that. He said, looks good to go, you know, make sure the car is level, get the tail shaft inch higher than the cranks now, you know, center this, that, all that jazz. That's all in there. That's what I've been working on. That's a Dodge R5 P7, a real former NASCAR competition engine, dry sump, everything. It's legitimate. This is an old Joe Gibbs car that Bobby Labonte drove back in the day. Joey Logano drove it, Eric Almirola drove it, probably some other people in there I don't even know about, but now it's mine, and I'm gonna race it, and it's gonna be awesome. And Logan's car, she's working on that. I'll let her tell you about it. She's filming everything too, but it's gonna be really nice when she's done, and she's gonna be one heck of a fabricator too, because she's done all of this herself. So there you go, that's the State of the Union and some life YouTube reflection. Probably a lot more I could have put in there. Probably a lot less I could have put in there too. But if you watch this thing and or watch stuff on the extra channel, I know that you're one of the people that actually care about us and what we're doing and follow those pivots. You're not just only interested in what we are doing. And that does mean something to me. I want you to know that.